This denim poncho was one of my most requested items back when I sold, but I only made one. I never made another until today, and we're going to do it together. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't been here before, my name is Tracy, and this is a DIY upcycling channel. And recently I posted a video of over 60 of my most extreme upcycles. I numbered them, and you voted for your favorite, and I thank you for participating in that. That was a lot of fun. Okay, so number one was this lace duster, and I'm gathering supplies to make that. I don't have everything yet. Number two was this denim poncho, and I have everything to make that. And you might too, because it's scraps of denim, scraps of fabric, super easy pattern. That's what we're doing today. Let's get to it. Oh, I want to tell you real quick too. These jeans are a tutorial. I'll put the link down in my description. This top was made from a t-shirt dress that was too short for me. Now it's a flounce tunic. And I'm going to have a little mini tutorial at the end of this tutorial. After I do the reveal of the poncho, I'm going to show you how I made it, and it's so easy. Okay, let's make the poncho. First thing we need to do is make a pattern. And this is 30 inches tall by 42 inches across this way. And I'm using wrapping paper, and the wrapping paper with the 1-inch grid on the back is amazing for measuring and cutting straight lines. And then I took it and I folded it in half. So I laid it on my table, and this is the top, and all I need to do is cut a little triangle out. Okay, here's the top. Here's my crease. On that crease, I'm going to mark down 7 inches. Now from this crease over, I'm going to mark 5 inches. And from the crease over this way, mark 5 inches. Whoops. Now I will just connect those dots and cut it out. And that's it. Doesn't get much easier than that. This will be both the front and the back of the poncho. And now I need to make 2 big patchwork pieces of denim and fabric so that I can trace this and cut the pieces out. I have 2 big panels here. This one is not done, and we'll finish it together, and I'll show you in more details what I did. But I want to show you the easiest way to create 2 is to make them sort of identical. When I cut something out of a pant leg here, I did the same here. Not exactly the same size because I didn't measure anything, and and on and on. This is a piece of a shirt, so I did the same over here. That way everything is cohesive. I did use jeans for some of these pieces, but I tried to use more like shirts and dresses because they're a lighter denim, and I didn't want to get this too heavy. This was from a jean jacket, a shirt. I have a piece of random fabric, a pair of old jeans that I had already bleached and patched. The jeans that already have embroidery and designs are really fun to use. Now on both of these, I laid 1 piece on at a time and sewed it. I didn't want to overlap a bunch of stuff and have all these pins and have it be confusing. So this is basically what I did. I need to finish this gap and this gap. So I have a piece of shirt that has a little bit of a pattern. I'm going to lay it over top like this. Now this time I'm going to do 2 at a time just because I'm filming this. Make it quicker. And then I have another piece of denim. Now this time I will lay it underneath You can go over, under. You just do whatever's feeling right to you. Now I'm going to pin this here and pin this here. Now I'm going to sew these on, and I will stay fairly close to the edge, about 1/4 of an inch. Sew that there, and then this one I'll sew here. I will be using a goldish mustard colored thread and a straight stitch. These pieces are sewn on. I'm going to flip it over to the back side, and because we overlapped, we have some excess fabric right here. Here's my stitch line. I'm just cutting that off to about 1/4 of an inch close to that stitch line. This is the panel we just finished. And this is my other panel. Now I'm going to lay my pattern on top, and I'm going to pin all 4 corners, but a lot of people just use weights. I like to pin. I don't want this to shift around. Now I'm going to trace around it with white tailor's chalk, and then I'll do the same to the other patchwork panel. Okay, here's my line. Now I am going, before I cut it, because there's so many seams and so many things pieced together, I am going to take it to my sewing machine, and with a straight stitch, I am going to follow that line all the way around the entire pattern that we traced out, just to keep things safe and secure. Now I can safely cut out that pattern, and I will stay on the outside of that stitch we just made. This is what panel 1 now looks like, all cut out, in panel 2. Now I want to add some fun patches and applique, and my pieces come from everywhere. I have a similar pile for the other panel, and just like flowers cut out of fabric. This was from a pillow cover. This was cut off a shorts romper from the thrift store. Fun tapestries. These little flowers were cut from a pair of pants. This was a wall hanging tapestry. Just look around and get creative. Now, I laid these out earlier, and I took a picture with my phone. So I'm going to have to turn the camera off and look at my picture so I can remember where I had everything. And then I'll show you what I do. There's where I placed everything. I just wanted things that were a little bit colorful, but I do have some muted pieces. Now I'm going to pin everything in place, and then I'll take it to my machine, and with a small zigzag stitch, I'll go around the edges as close to the edge as I safely can, and then I will do the other panel. Now I'm pinning the back piece. Look what I see out my window as I'm sewing. Okay, here's what panel 1 looks like. And I used the gold colored thread again, like a darker gold, not metallic. I feel like that blends nicely with so many different colors. Then I don't have to switch my thread out all the time. Here's panel 2. And I am going to take photos, and at the very end, I'll have a photo of the front and of the back, because I know this is a lot to kind of absorb. All right, now it's time to put them together. I am going to sew mine wrong sides together, seams on the outside. So there's the right side. I have this upside down. And now I'm going to take my other piece, wrong sides together, lay it on top, and I'm going to stick a few pins, and I'm going to sew straight across here and straight across here. I will be using between 1/4 and 1/2 inch seam allowance. I don't want to go quite half because I don't want a giant seam allowance on the back or on the outside, but I want to go a little more than 1/4 just to make it a little more secure. Okay, so now I have the shoulders sewn shut, and you can leave it like this, kind of a true poncho, open on the sides. But I'm going to give mine sort of more of a big sleeve look, so I'm going to sew it together a little bit at the bottom. Again, I'm going to sew this wrong sides together. I'm going to measure up, I have a ruler, 12 inches from the bottom, and I'm going to stick a pin, and then I'll stick a few more from there down. And then I'll do that to the other side. Once I get that pinned, I'll take it to my machine and sew a stitch from this pin all the way down. Okay, sides are all sewn shut down at the bottom. The last thing I want to do is take a strip of denim. Mine is 36 inches long and 3/4 of an inch wide. And I'm going to find the center. And right here, I had to choose which was going to be the front. And right in the front, at the bottom of that V-neck, I'm going to lay the center there and do a couple rows of zigzag stitching. And then when it's all washed, I'll tie that in a bow. Okay, there's my little bow. Now I'm going to turn it inside out so you can see what the inside looks like, just in case you're curious. Okay, you know, it could pretty much be reversible because we have seams on the inside and the outside. Maybe if you don't want so much color, well, we got a pocket here, so, you know. All right, so I'm going to wash this and dry this. I want all that fray. The wash and dry will make everything fray, and that's going to be a cute detail. I'll have to trim any crazy long fray pieces, and then I'll put it on and show you what it looks like. Okay, here it is, all done. Such a fun project. The neckline, it borderline could have been smaller. I like it just the way it is. I guess it depends on your body type. If you have narrow shoulders or making this for a smaller person, that center seam on the pattern where we went 5 inches and 5 inches, you might want to go 4 and 4. Mine, if it slouches off one shoulder, I kind of like that. I'm not saying it would, but it's borderline. Okay, so I'm going to bring this in closer so you can have a better look. And then I'm going to do a photo of the front and back so you can do a screenshot if you want. And then the short tutorial of the black shirt that I wore throughout the video. Thank you so much for watching. Okay, so this started out as a black t-shirt dress that fit me great, except it was too short. It hit me about mid-thigh, and for me that was too short. So what I did was put it on, and I stuck a pin. I put it on with a pair of pants, stuck a pin where I want the finished top to be, the shortest part, and then I moved that pin up 4 inches because I want to add a 4-inch flounce ruffle. So that got me about here. And I'm sorry, black does not film well. See those chalk marks? While I had it on, I did a rough sketch, and I'll show you with my finger because it's hard to see, that started about here and moved up and then down, and it stopped just about at the seam, the side seam of the dress. Now I'm going to fold my dress in half, and I'm going to line up those side seams. Now I'm picking one side of that arch that I made, and I'm going to cut it so that both sides are symmetrical. Now this is the shape that we have, and I think I'm going to round these corners a little bit, and I am going to shorten these sleeves and make them more of a cap sleeve. I'm going to line up these corners. And just round that a little bit. Now I'm going to cut these sleeves. Here's the neckline. Here's the seam to my short sleeve. Just outside of that sleeve, on the sleeve side, about 1/2 inch over, and I'm not going to do any measuring. I'm going to cut this all the way around on both sides. Now this is the piece that I cut off the dress, and then I gathered some other black t-shirt scraps. The beauty of t-shirts, they don't fray, so we don't have to do any hemming. I'm going to take a big bowl. This is sort of my popcorn bowl, about 12 inches across, and I'm going to make a bunch of circles. I don't know how many yet. I'll have to see as I go how many ruffles I need. And then I'll cut that out. This one I'm tracing on now was like a jersey skirt. Jersey fabric is what t-shirts are, so it won't fray, and I have a bigger piece of fabric here. I'm starting with 5. If I need more, I'll find more black t-shirts and cut more ruffles. But we are going to make flounce ruffles. I want my ruffles to be about 4 inches. That's about like that. And I am not going to measure. I am going to freehand everything because it just needs to be close. It doesn't need to be perfect. Now I'm kind of coming in at an angle on the side. I'm going to work up to about 4 inches and cut the perimeter. And just keep going around and around until I run out of circle. You might want to try to keep your lines a little more smooth than I have mine. And I'll just end it at sort of a point right here, I think. And then when you open it up, it has a natural ruffle. Now I'm going to sew these to the sleeves and to the bottom of which will now be a tunic. So I will start at the bottom on the sleeve, at the underseam, and lay it over top. That's why I left that little 1/2 inch lip. I'll butt it up against the seam and do a zigzag stitch all the way around. Zigzag, this is stretchy, and a zigzag stitch has give and will stretch. A straight stitch will not. So go all the way around. When I get to the bottom, I'm just going to cut that off. I'm not going to piece that together or anything. And then when we get to the edge of the bottom, I am going to overlap about between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. Doesn't really matter. Zigzag stitch that all the way around. I shouldn't have to do any pleating. It should lay nice because it's round already. And then when one runs out, I will overlap the next one quite a bit so that I still have sort of a 4-inch piece here. If I butted it up like that, then I'm going to have this, which would be fine as well, except I don't want to take the risk that my belly is going to poke out, so I'll overlap it quite a bit, get those sewn on. I'm on my first sleeve, and I started here, and I'm almost all the way back around. I have quite a bit of ruffle left. I think what I'll do is cut this at an angle where it will overlap this maybe only an inch. And continue sewing. I ended up cutting one more circle, and I trimmed some ruffle off the bottom because it was hanging too low. And that's all there is to it. I hope you have a wonderfully creative week, and we'll see you next time.